a grey December morning, I had cause to have to take Mrs. Lumsden to work and wait around for a couple of hours, so I couldn't miss this opportunity to go and have a little stroll around my local canals. So I think the wisest place to begin the day is Birmingham's library, a very controversial building on the outside, but what an incredible resource on the inside. It's like a modern day Hogwarts, this place, all these moving stairways and stuff like that. I just loved it. The amount of information and research materials in here is immense, and I found the maps on the 4th floor and I could have stayed there all day. So let me talk you through the evolution of the Cambrian Wharf and Gas Street areas using some of these historic maps. So this map from 1771 was the earliest map we could find that showed the canal. But first of all, let me just show you the current day so that you can understand a commonplace reference. So we're looking down on the indoor arena, the Sea Life Centre, Broad Street, Gas Street Basin area, and north is at the top of the screen. The Birmingham Canal was initially agreed in 1767, and an Act of Parliament was passed in 1768 to build it. You can see on this map it's still short of its Newhall Street terminus. That was completed 1 year later in 1772. And at this point there was no such thing as Gas Street Basin, though surprisingly it appears they were planning on tunnelling from Old Turn to what we now know of Gas Street Basin, and then also tunnelling back out of the other end to link back to Newhall Street. They obviously decided against this, and by 1773 they dug out deep cutting with a small tunnel under Broad Street. This then led round to a large tuning fork shaped wharf known as Paradise Wharf or Old Wharf, as seen on this map of 1781. You'll also notice that the Newhall Branch is now complete. On this map of 1819, we can now see the addition of the Birmingham Fazeley Canal at Farmers Bridge. It was actually completed by 1789 and was a John Smeaton designed canal. But what's this? Another canal has appeared from the south. It's the Worcester-Birmingham. Though a bill was actually passed in 1791 to build this canal, a lack of money saw it delayed and it was finally completed in 1815. It did not, however, join up with the Birmingham Canal. This map of 1838 shows big changes have happened. Telford has begun streamlining the previous twisty route, more on that later. They had also opened up the previous barrier at Worcester Bar, so now the canals are joined up but owned by different companies, more on that later too. We also have an arm coming off the original Newhall branch, which goes through a tunnel. This gains access to a new wharf, Baskerville Wharf. Again, more on that later. And just as I move away from the maps now, just showing you how it looked in 1838 as opposed to how it looks now. So before we go off in search of the remnants of what was the old Newhall Branch Canal, I just want to have a quick look at the effect that Thomas Telford had on the Birmingham city centre side of the Birmingham main line. So I'm stood on a bridge right there, and that is looking back towards Cambrian Wharf and the old Newhall Branch terminus. In the opposite direction, coming straight underneath where I'm stood now, is what is now known as Ousel's Loop. Well, that was the original James Brindley Birmingham Canal. We just go to the right of that. That is the new line, the Telford New Line, Birmingham Main Line. That was put in about 60, 70 years after Brindley's. So here you see the old line of Brindley, the old twisting, turning line. And then that was superseded by Telford, going straight through, superhighway. That left us with the loops, Ousel's Loop Icknield Port Loop and Soho Loop. They are a prized thing of beauty, and I for one am so pleased they didn't fill them in. So yes, once upon a time the canal used to carry on from Cambrian Wharf. It used to carry on in that direction there, so that green boat is kind of now the terminus as such, but the terminus used to be much further over there, a further 600 metres away, which is quite a distance. So there's Cambrian Wharf looking back at it. I'm now stood where the canal would have been. I'm in the middle of the cut. It came through here, whoosh, and it went in that direction over there. So this is the corner of Newhall Street and Lionel Street. And the Newhall Branch used to end just there. That was the old terminus. It's all under there somewhere, heading back towards the library now. And there's a rare gap in the buildings, so I guess the canal was running about there. A definite hump in the pavements here. I suspect that's where it used to come through from, come through over there. That's Baskerville House through there, and Cambrian Wharf is in that direction. It says James Brindley Walk, but this bit of canal was actually John Smeaton. It's coming off Brindley's Cambrian Wharf at the top there. So if I just could get through those buildings to the other side, that will be the place where the tunnel was. There is Lionel Street that we've just walked up, which we know the canal was running underneath those buildings. So my guess is that this is the line of the canal coming through here and going through these high-rise flats. That's going back to Cambrian Wharf. But somewhere here we had the arm that went under a tunnel. I think the tunnel would have come back into daylight around about here. And then there was a lock in here that took it then up into Baskerville Wharf. We're now walking past what would have been a lock around about here. So I'm now stood in the entrance of Baskerville House looking out at what the boatmen would have been looking at as they came up the lock. So yeah, it went to a little spike up in that corner. It went, there was an alarm led across to another spike that went in that direction. This memorial building was built after this arm of the wharf. There was an arm of the wharf was about here. Again, there was another spiky little bit there-ish, and it went off in that direction down there in a straight line. And prior to any of those canals being built, this whole area was known as Easy Hill, and this is where John Baskerville lived.
This was his area. The house had to go when the canals arrived. If only you could see it now. Ice skating, a big chicken coop, a library.
So on to these three clever chaps. Watt, Bolton and Murdoch, massive players in the Industrial Revolution, particularly around the Birmingham area. This prompting further need for canal infrastructure and water management of said canals. Again, when you just scratch the surface when researching this sort of stuff, it's incredible what you find, far more than can be relayed via a 20-minute vlog. Suffice to say, in recent years, it's become more apparent that developing nations over the world for centuries have plundered the third world for resources, the most notorious element of that being the slave trade. And these guys were no exception. So do spend some time researching this if you want. Indeed, scan the QR code here for some really useful stuff. And so to Gas Street, possibly one of the most famous and photographed locations on the whole of the UK canal network, certainly the BCN. The Tap and Spile pub being one of mine and Mrs L's favourite locations. Nice, unspoilt pub, good beers, great location. Gas Street was so named as it had a gasworks down it, and it was the first street in Birmingham to be lit by gas lamps. Just look at some of these sites. The atmosphere around here is fantastic. The roof lines are brilliant. The buildings are just fab. I love it. So here's one of those examples of something that how it looks now as opposed to how it looked back in the day. Look at the difference there. Amazing. There at the bottom of the screen, the direction of sight, and there at the top of the screen, the BCN head office at the end of Paradise Street, at the end of Old Wharf.
That there is what's left of Worcester Bar. Used to be a bar. It's gone all the way across here. These two canals didn't join. That's the Worcester Birmingham Canal. So it would have been opened up, and then this would have had a stop lock on it. Stop loss of water to be able to charge tolls, etc. This used to go through to another wharf. Worcester Birmingham. Birmingham Canal Navigations main line. This bridge here, as much as it looks old, is actually quite new. There just used to be a wooden plank going across here. And then, unbeknown to a lot of people, at the other side of Worcester Bar, that is actually an access to another arm that went through to another wharf. It's now been built in as part of I think it's part of a wine bar or something. But when you look inside, you can still see the brickwork of the bridge. And here you can see the hump in the road where that arm used to come through. There's currently a window in a building. Used to come through underneath here. And go up there. Some of you will know, I've told you before, that Mrs. Lumsden works in here, about there, in that window there, somewhere thereabouts. But that's sitting right on top of what used to be called Old Wharf, which went through there and through that way. So obviously this was a new bridge built to indicate where the old bridge used to be.
Well, I think that'll do it for your tutorial today. If you see anything on there that you disagree with and you can correct me, that's fine. Do that, please. Let me know. Let's just take one more last look at the now and then shots. I think I'd like to see it as it was.